Welcome to this Saturday travel and history tip. And yes, we are continuing northbound on Highway 83 to see all the wonderful sights between Texas and North Dakota. But we are still in South Dakota and we are still in Pierre, the state capital. Last week in part 7, we took you up highways 1804 and 1806, representative of the Corps of Discovery's trip across the U.S. And this week, we will be on our last stop of the driving tour to see all the sights in Fort Pierre and Pierre. We went to the South Dakota State Historical Society Museum. Before we walked in, though, we saw this quartzite border. Following South Dakota's admission as a state in 1889, the United States Department of Interior called on surveyor Charles H. Bates to survey and to mark the border between North and South Dakota. We will be learning a lot about this rivalry when we go to our next Saturday Travel and History Tip. Even when the president signed the declaration admitting these two states in, he did it so that he did not even know which one he signed first, so that one would not be able to claim over the other. But they did choose the alphabetical way in that North Dakota was first and then South Dakota next. Bates worked through 1891 and 1892, setting 720 quartzite pillars like this one every half mile along the line. The boundary became known as the quartzite border, and it is the only state boundary marked in this fashion. I really wanted to see one of these, but because we were traveling in the motorhome, that was not possible. Just another little layer of the onion that I'll have to get to some other time. And then they had this woman called the Citadel. It's dedicated to the pioneer women of South Dakota. Almost every state has a historical society museum, and they have always been phenomenal. I encourage you to find out if your state has one. Many times they are free. This one was not. Once inside, I asked if the gentleman that I had spoken to was there that day, and he was, and he quickly came down to meet us. My newfound friend took us straight to the Leveren Dry Plate. This is one of the most famous artifacts in the museum. It is the plate that brothers Louis Joseph and Francois Verendrye had buried in 1743, and I have already taken you to the location of exactly where that has happened. Simply breathtaking is all I can say. The sign in the museum says in 1742, Pierre Gaultier de Varennes, Sieur de la Verendrye, sent his sons after the glory of a water route to China, on foot and on horseback. Louis Joseph and Francois trekked west, turning back when their Indian guides refused to go farther. After 14 months, the two French Canadians did not find a route to the sea, but they were among the first newcomers to see the Dakota Plains. Camping with Indians along the Missouri, they buried a lead plate near the Bad River to honor their king. The Verendrye brothers spoke from the past on February 16, 1913. A group of teenagers on a Sunday stroll stumbled on the edge of the plate buried 170 years before. They dug it up, thinking a printer might buy it for lead type. A local historian learned of their find and saved it for all to see. The lead plate is engraved with these words as translated. In the 26th year of the reign of Louis XV, the most illustrious lord, the Lord Marquis of Beauharnois, 1741, Pierre Gaultier de la Verendrye, placed this, scratched on the back, placed by the Chevalier Verendrye, Louis Ladant and A. Miot, 30 March 1743. I apologize for my lack of proper French. The other item that I had no idea was in this museum, my newfound friend, as I'll call him, wanted to show me. It was a Jefferson Peace Medal that was found along the Missouri River near Mobridge. Peace medals were presented to influential Indians by government agents like Lewis and Clark and Pierre Chouteau. This is the only one that has ever been found. How exceptional. As you can see, the displays are well done and full of so much to learn and read. They have an exquisite section of Indian artifacts depicting the Sioux way of life. One of the really interesting items is this great Sioux Horse Effigy, and it is actually the symbol that you'll see on many of the road signs and on this particular historical society's information. This particular horse effigy is a masterpiece of Sioux sculpture. This artifact is one of only 2 full-body horse effigy memorials known to exist. It is made of wood, possibly cottonwood, with a horsehair mane and tail and leather reins and bridle. Stylized bullet wounds pour blood from the horse's sides. Red horsehair flowing from the mouth may also depict blood. The effigy's ears slant back in fear and pain. Its elongated body and forward leaping motion suggest a leap from life to death. The effigy was collected on the Standing Rock Reservation by Congregationalist missionary Mary C. Collins, who worked on the reservation from 1884 to 1910. She donated the effigy to the South Dakota State Historical Society in 1920. And in our next Saturday Travel and History Tip, we will learn more about the Standing Rock Reservation, and Mary C. Collins. Moving on through the galleries, we went to the observation gallery on the second floor called Where the Wild Things Grow in South Dakota, and they displayed a wide variety of plants. They also had this large glass window to beautiful views of the state capitol. Other galleries are the South Dakota Experience Galleries, the Hogan Gallery. Here is a sod house. This is how many people lived on the plains. They had to use the resources that were there. It is a treeless plain for the most part, with cottonwoods only along the waterways. It was a hard life, as depicted in these photographs. This silver service is from the USS South Dakota, a warship that was launched in 1904. The silver includes nautical and mythical imagery, as well as South Dakota imagery. The ornate decorations show cattle, buffalo, eagles, and an Indian chief. Stunning, wouldn't you say? This is the Territorial Governor's Desk. You can pretend to visit the office of the last Territorial and the state's first governor, Governor Arthur C. Mellett, who used this desk in the first state capitol. The walls were filled, the floor was filled with displays. This is another thing that I do want to go see, is the actual site where this stratospheric flight landed. Haven't gone there yet, but we will one day. The CCC improved the Stratobowl, a natural amphitheater in the Black Hills, in 1935. From there, the National Geographic Society and the U.S. Army Corps launched balloons to explore the stratosphere. The first explorer reached 60,000 feet before tearing. The balloon crashed in Nebraska after the crew parachuted to safety. Explorer 2 carried Captain Albert W. Stevens and Lieutenant Orville A. Anderson to 72,395 feet. After taking data, they landed near White Lake. Just interesting history. Crazy stuff that we don't ever hear about. You could spend hours in this place, and we spent a few hours, but I only have a few minutes for you to see some of the exciting things that we saw that day. There was a lot of military memorabilia, and I found this one interesting just because we teach and talk about dinosaurs. In 1873, Hurlbut was a surveyor for the Sioux City and Pembina Railroad. He recorded the discovery by work crews of the bones of a large marine reptile along the Missouri River in Nebraska. In this drawing, he called the plesiosaurus restored. This is a granite and cast iron sundial from Fort Sully, which was established in 1866. Soldiers and officers of this fort whiled away the time with amusements including a baseball team, roller skating club, and greyhound racing. When the fort was abandoned, the Rixies dragged the sundial to Oahe and planted it in front of their house. And now it's in the museum. They had the section on sending a telegraph and the International Morse Code, and with that you could practice your Morse code, which was something we did try. Again, a lot of military honor to those of South Dakota who have fought in the various wars. One really curious item was this Japanese balloon bomb that was found on a farm 13 miles south of Ree Heights. Unable to strike the U.S. mainland directly, the Japanese attached about 6,000 bombs to weather balloons and released them into the jet stream winds to cross the Pacific. About 300 balloons landed on U.S. soil, 8 in South Dakota. And here is one of those Japanese bombs. Crazy, isn't it? And now, with our current situation, this sign stood out to me more than maybe it would have in previous years, but it was on the Spanish flu. And it said the worldwide Spanish flu epidemic of 1918 to 1919 was deadlier than the Great War. The flus, coughing, aches, and high fever often led to pneumonia. 25 million people died, including 500,000 in the United States. Flu hit the state in October 1918, and about 1,000 people died. A Langford teacher said, "Everyone was scared, the doctors didn't know what to do, and there was no one to help the doctor. I sang at 4 funerals in one day. Schools closed and all public functions were canceled. It was so bad the morticians could not keep up." I do want to add that one of my uncles, one of my dad's brothers, died of the Spanish flu. Here is a gas mask from 1917. And then they had these drawers that were filled with political buttons, and I found this one of one of my favorite presidents, Ronald Wilson Reagan. This was a curious sign, instructions to voters, and it talked about spoiled ballots, marking the ballot, returning the ballots after voting. Strict rules, One of the drawers had buttons from governor's races. Here is their beautiful governor, Christie, and first gentleman, Brian Nome. She became the governor on January 5th, 2019, and as we showed you 2 Saturdays back, her beautiful home, the governor's mansion. One of the last sections that we went through was a display of South Dakota's soldier's wardrobe. It was actually very intriguing. Of course, you would expect coats for South Dakota, but they had fancy clothing and they had Western gear, as you would expect. One of the things that my museum friend wanted to show us for sure was this woman's dress that had a pheasant attached to the backside. Interesting, wouldn't you say? American history. Learn it. Love it. Appreciate it. Don't let them steal our history. Treasure our American history. And if you appreciate our content, tell others and repost on your social platforms. Our YouTube channel is Steve Groman. Hit the notification bell to be alerted when we post new nuggets and Saturday history and travel tips. You will not want to miss next week's Saturday Travel and History Tip, which is part 9 of the series of U.S. Highway 83, The Road to Nowhere. I think they've totally mislabeled that road. Wouldn't you agree with me? We will be talking mainly about Sitting Bull. And as this billboard says, his burial site. Interestingly, he has 2, one in North Dakota and one in South Dakota. Thank you.